Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the third edition of Diplomacy Talks Croatia. And today we have an honor and we are very joyous to have Helen Madunić, the ambassador of Sweden to Croatia. Hello, Diana.
Hello.
Welcome. It's the first time actually we have an ambassador of a country to Croatia, which is of Croatian origin, which is quite interesting for us. I didn't prepare any questions about that, but I think that the people like you could be the real bridge between the two countries. You know, even in Sweden, you were a bridge, and over here you're a bridge too. What do you think about that?
Well, I hope that would be my wish, actually, to play that role. And I think the reason my government appointed me as ambassador to Croatia was actually to try to fill that those shoes, trying to create this link between Sweden and Croatia and strengthening the relations between our two countries. So thank you very much for pointing that out.
The first question is basically that both Sweden and Croatia are the members of the European Union, and Croatia is a member of NATO, Sweden is militarily neutral. But basically there are a lot of similarities and relations are good in every aspect. And how do you assess the relations between the two countries?
I think that the relations since the independence of Croatia has been very, very good. But of course, since Croatia became member of the EU in 2014, those relations have been excellent, I would say. And one example that I would like to highlight was the fact that we had a state visit from the King and the Queen of Sweden just before Croatia joined the EU. So that was kind of a sign and a signal that from now on we regard ourselves to be partner countries within the EU. It's true, Sweden is not a member of NATO. We are non-aligned, as we call it. But still, I think the possibilities of strengthening the relations and having good relations between Sweden and Croatia lies mainly within the European Union, the platform that EU and Brussels provides for our relations.
How do you assess the economic cooperation between the two countries?
First of all, I have to say that there's always potential for improvements, and that's one of those questions that we in our embassy are working very hard to try to strengthen the economic relations. But having said that, I do have to say that I was very positively surprised to see that in Croatia, when I was appointed ambassador to Croatia, in Croatia there are around 50 Swedish companies established here, and which is surprising, especially when you compare to other countries. And they employ around 10,000 people in Croatia altogether. So I was, as I said, very positively surprised to see this interest from Swedish companies to come to Croatia, especially after Croatia became member of the EU. And of course, the bigger ones, one of the biggest in the country is Ericsson Nikola Tesla, very well known and very successful company in this country. I find that to be a very good example of cooperation in the economic sphere between Croatia and Sweden. But of course, we also have the other well-known companies, IKEA and Volvo and the rest. I was very, very happy last year when the Swedish company Stillfront purchased the Croatian company, the gaming company Nanobit. And the reason for that is actually this is kind of the new industry, the gaming industry. And I think that there is tremendous potential for cooperation between Croatia and Sweden. There is a similar interest in this industry, the ICT sector. So I was very happy when that happened last year, and we hope that there will be more examples of that sort in the future.
Great. One thing that I forgot basically to write to you as a question is that there is a huge, if we take Zlatan Ibrahimović, for example, we have a huge diaspora of Croats basically in Sweden, you being one of them. And the first wave was after the World War II, and then the 60s and the 70s, and then I believe after the joining of the European Union, and before that, the free movement of people and everything. People tend to go to the richest countries of the world, to Ireland. A lot of Croats live in Ireland, Croatians, in Iceland even, lots of them in Norway, Sweden. How do you, in Sweden, get along with the immigrants from Croatia? How do they enrich the cultural, how should I say, patchwork of Sweden as a multicultural country in the last 50 years?
Well, since I am being one of them, maybe I'm a little bit biased when talking about it, but I would like to stress that, of course, the Croatians in Sweden have contributed tremendously to the culture and the development of Sweden, not least the economic development. Most of them came in the 60s, the 70s, when the economic growth was very high in Sweden, and we were crying out in Europe for more people to come to work in the Swedish industry. And of course, after the membership of the EU, we have had another wave. I would also mention during the war that there was a number of people who came, of course, after the war in the 90s. And I would like to stress that our impression is that they have integrated extremely well in Swedish society. Many of them, you don't hardly even notice them because they've been successful in their different careers. I think there are a lot of good engineers coming from Croatia who are working in Sweden, not least in the Ericsson company, for instance. But I also think that there are a lot of doctors, for instance. You have excellent people working in the health sector who came to Sweden, and so on and so on. And some of them even became very famous and successful. We have this professor, Danica Kragic, for instance, at the Swedish Engineer University in Stockholm, KTH. And she's well known in Sweden for her engagement in artificial intelligence. We are very happy to have her in Sweden, and she's just one example. So overall, I think that the integration has been extremely successful and has also contributed tremendously to strengthening the relations between Sweden and Croatia.
Yes, that's one of the aspects of great relations. Now, Swedish economy is changing. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, everybody had Ericsson mobile phones. Now, a few people have them. Ericsson switched to another scope of business. Now there are other companies, IKEA being one of the constant companies, the constant giants of Swedish economy, but the economy is changing and moving in circles. Maybe one day we'll also have high-tech companies from Sweden that will be well known and in every household. But one thing about economy that bothers me during the last 14 months is the economic crisis caused by coronavirus, of course, and pandemic. Can you tell me what's happening? AstraZeneca is partly Swedish as a vaccine. Yes, it's partly British, Oxford, and partly Swedish. So how the vaccination is going on in Sweden? One would expect Sweden to be the leader in the world because it's one of the co-producers of the most popular vaccines. But how do you cope with the vaccination process and with the crisis caused by coronavirus?
Okay. Well, economically wise, I think, of course, we have been hit like other countries, but less so because we did not have the strict lockdown like most countries had last year. So our economy wasn't as hit as in many other countries. And now we have seen in the last months, we have seen a very quick recovery in the economy. So we foresee that the growth will be substantial when it comes to the industry and so on. When it comes to the vaccination process, my government have been very, very positively have a positive approach to the EU cooperation, coordination in this field. So I think that all EU member states are more or less in the same kind of process when it comes to purchasing and distributing and vaccinating the population. In our case, we divided our population into 4 strict groups. And last week on Monday, we launched the 3rd phase of the vaccination, which means those people between 60 and 64 will be vaccinated, started to be vaccinated last week. The ambition is to finish the vaccination program by mid-August. And by then, all the population, everybody above 18 years old, are supposed to have been vaccinated in Sweden. Hopefully, it will be even quicker, but we will see, at least with then 1 shot. And but of course, everything will depend on the industry and the companies in the health sector and the amount of vaccines that they can provide. So I think when it comes to the infrastructure and the launching of the vaccination all over the country of Sweden, everything is settled and everybody is waiting. But of course, now we are waiting for the vaccination doses to arrive. So everything will depend on that at the end of the day. But the ambition is still there to be more or less finished by mid-August.
I've seen some, yesterday basically, I've seen some data showing that the 3 countries that are, how should I say, neighboring to Sweden, Finland, Estonia, and Germany, in a way, they're both, all of them are neighbors. Baltic countries are going with a very fast pace in the vaccination process. I think we contributed basically to the Northern Protestant mentality. They're disciplined and everything. If the government says you're going to do that, that they're going to do that in Croatia, in Serbia, and Bulgaria, in I don't know how many southern countries. We have lots of problems with people who think they are cleverer than the doctors, and they refuse or they're skeptical towards vaccine. Do you think that it has something to do with the Swedish mentality that is going to be quite nice? Because I've seen Finland going really well. I think that Sweden is going to be the next miracle in the north when vaccination is considered.
Well, I think to some extent it has to do with mentality. The thing that I think stands out is that the population of Sweden is rather positive towards vaccination and getting the vaccines. Actually, people are just waiting for the day when they can be vaccinated. So this negative attitude towards vaccination is not so widely spread in Sweden as maybe in other countries in the EU. I think that contributes, and especially the elderly people. I speak from experience of my own parents. They can hardly wait to have their vaccines and the vaccination shots. So in that sense, there might be a slightly different attitude towards vaccination and the whole process. I think everybody is mainly in favor of the vaccine.
It's great because in Croatia is the 3rd worst country when you make a public poll about a vaccination. Cyprus is the worst, Bulgaria is the 2nd worst, and Croatia is the 3rd most skeptical in the European Union, which is not very well. I hope it's going to be surpassed in the future. I personally got my AstraZeneca shot.
Good for you.
2 months ago. Yeah, it was 2 months ago. So
I'm a bit jealous.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry?
What did you say?
I said I am a bit jealous with you.
Oh yeah, and I started joking. I put some like 5 days in a row. I put some Swedish bands on Facebook, and I said I don't know why, but I have this urge to listen to Swedish music, and Swedish music is all of a sudden very inside me. I don't know what happened. Maybe they put it in the vaccine, you know. and then I started something with British music and said, I don't know why, but British and Swedish music is now somehow it's inside me. So it was my part of the promotion of the vaccine, especially after some bad words that we've heard about this particular vaccine. But tell me, there was after Belarus, Sweden, as you said so, was the unusual in its handling of the pandemic. Belarus and Sweden were really open. Like, oh, Belarus even played a football league, so it was interesting. Everybody said something about Swedish model, and do you assess that the Swedish model helped? You said something about that, but can we elaborate a little bit this topic?
Yeah. Well, yeah, last spring, when we all were hit by this virus, I think that the Swedish strategy kind of stood out slightly. And I don't know why, but what our epidemiologists and politicians decided that we would kind of try to find a balance between different interests, so to say, not having a total lockdown. It relates to democracy, human rights, and the freedom of people, and also a balance when it comes to economy. But I think what was most surprising is that they, from the very beginning, they were thinking about this pandemic as something long-term. And I heard them talk a lot about the fact that we have to kind of be able to keep up these measures in the longer run, in the longer term, so to say. I still remember when I mentioned to my staff in the embassy that we will have this pandemic until the end of last year, and everybody was objecting, saying that's impossible. But here we are more than 1 year later, and we are still in this pandemic. So for some reason, the Swedish authorities try to adopt an approach that would be lasting for a longer period. And what I can say, when looking out in Croatia today, looking around here in Zagreb and so on, I think that the measures are very much similar at the moment. I mean, there is no entire lockdown in Croatia. We are still trying to keep up the society and live our lives and work and the rest of it to the fullest extent possible given the pandemic. And I think that was the approach that the Swedish authorities took from the very beginning. And so here we are. I mean, the situation is what it is. I don't know if you want me to elaborate, but also in Sweden, we are now struggling with the third wave, which is very, very hard, especially on the health sector. But on the other hand, I can say when it comes to the number of deaths and when it comes to the death figures, those are the most definite thing. Being affected by corona and having corona is one thing, but actually dying from corona is, irreversible. So when looking at those figures, Sweden is somewhere in the middle of the EU, when it comes to comparing to other countries. At the moment, there are around 13,500 dead people in Sweden from corona, which is a terrible figure. It breaks my heart to think about it, the number of people and the families affected. But that is related to a population of more than 10 million people. In Croatia, the figure is around, 6,800, I think, the latest figure, and that population is around 4 million plus something. So when you compare those figures, I would say the Swedish figures do not stand out in a particular way, and then in that case, I would also, that's related. That should be seen in the light of not having a strict lockdown last spring, and still the figures are somewhere in the middle of the EU. So I don't know. I'm really not an epidemiologist, even though we all have to kind of try to understand these things these days. But yeah, there you are. Those are the figures. And I think the scientists will have to, in the future, draw their own conclusion, what is the right and wrong and so approach, so to say.
I think that the whole world is basically now imitating the Swedish model from the last year, because here in Serbia, the people are doing the same, going to restaurants and everywhere. So it's pretty much, you have your own responsibility. It's until 10 o'clock in the evening. You have to wear a mask in the public transport everywhere, in the shops. So it's pretty much similar to the model that you in Sweden established last year. So it brings so many questions about everything. We will know definitely after a few years what we have done in during this crisis. But it's pretty much impossible to
Yes, I agree. And I think one should add one aspect as well, and that's the mental health of people in this whole crisis, of course, which was also something that we took into consideration very early on. You know, what will be the mental state of people when we go through this, and if we lock people up. So that was one reason that the decision was taken not to have a lockdown, a strict one.
Yeah. You're right. People are not doing well mentally. I've noticed that.
Not in Sweden either, I would add. Yeah.
No, I'm afraid it's not good. But now some more serious questions in terms of being grey questions. You mentioned some 50 companies from Sweden operating in Croatia, and Croatia is the second poorest European Union country, is hoping for more foreign direct investments. And can we expect more from Swedish side? Is there interest from Swedish companies? You know that from the Chamber of Commerce and
I think so, honestly. And as I mentioned, this Stillfront and the nanobit purchase is one example. I think the ICT sector has a great potential. Here in Croatia, there are a number of very good engineers when it comes to ICT sector and companies and so on. So I foresee that there will be more investments. We also have another example. I mean, Securitas, very few people know that Securitas is a Swedish company. It's all over Croatia. Any company, any building, you will usually have Securitas. I don't know about Serbia, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the same. We also have another Swedish, sorry?
I will pay attention to the labels, stickers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Stickers.
And then we have another very big example. We have a Swedish Croatian company producing parquet floors, click parquet floors. Mr. Pervanovo, he's originally from Croatia. He emigrated to Sweden, established a very successful parquet company there with a lot of patents when it comes to click parquet. And now he returned to Croatia and he's building what is going to be the biggest parquet company factory in the whole world here in Croatia. So I think absolutely that's a sign that there is an interest from Swedish companies, especially then since Croatia became member of the EU. Everything is so much easier to do business here. The regulations and everything is similar or the same. And so that, of course, is giving a lot of incentives for Swedish companies to come. So I foresee that's going to happen. At the same time, one should remember that the Croatian market is rather small or limited. 4 million people is not the biggest market if you want to expand. But here we go. The Swedish companies are here, and I foresee that there will be more of them in the future.
Yes. Now, thank you. Now, some more colorful questions. One of them is about tourism. Croatia has splendid coast, and lots of tourists tend to come to Croatia during the summertime. Now we don't know exactly how it's going to roll on in the future, but we hope that it will be all settled down until July, August, etc., so that the people will be able to come to, not to flock, but to come into normal numbers to Croatia. Last season was quite well, surprisingly well for Croatia. And can we expect, what do you think? Can we expect Swedish tourists to come to Croatia? Because it's, how should I say, it's long enough, so you don't have to be so packed. You don't have to be so packed. You can have your space. You can find your personal space in Croatian coast of the Adriatic. So, what do you assess the interest of Swedish tourists towards Croatian coast? How do we stand with that?
Oh my God, Croatia is absolutely on top of the list of popular countries to go for holidays in Sweden. And I should start by saying that you know that Sweden is a cold country. Yeah. We usually everybody gets around 5 weeks of holiday every summer, and then Easter and the rest, Christmas. So, you know, when you have 5 weeks, you can take at least 1 or 2, even more weeks going to some country for some sunshine and swimming and so on. And considering that Croatia is absolutely extremely popular among Swedes, not least thanks to its beauty, there is everything here that you can do. So it's extremely popular, and the word has spread among my friends. Everybody is talking about going to Croatia. The Mamma Mia movies, of course, has also contributed to this whole story.
Yes, the second part was shot in Croatia.
Yeah, in Croatia. Everybody knows that in Sweden. It's been all over the media that Visi is the island for that movie. So what we saw before the corona was the figures of tourists from Sweden increasing steadily every year, actually. More and more popular Croatia became. Now, of course, with the corona, it's different. But I should stress that in 2019, we had more than 300,000 tourists from Sweden coming, which around 330,000, which is basically the same amount that you will get from a country like Switzerland, which is much closer to Croatia than Sweden is, and which does not have its own coastline, so to say. We do have our own coastline on our archipelago, even though it's not as warm and sunny as the Croatian one. So I foresee as soon as this pandemic is over and when we get our vaccinations, the figures will come back and start growing again. That's what I foresee.
Yeah, I ask because a great percent of the GDP of Croatia is generated through tourism, and it's very important to get lots of foreign tourists, as many as possible. And do you know what's funny? Actually, I'll probably go to the coast of Sweden this summer. Yeah, we have some tickets. We have some tickets that we bought last February or something like that, before the pandemic, or even in the beginning of March, but nobody knew that it would be so durable. So the idea was to go to Malmö, and then to Copenhagen, and then go to Helsingborg in Denmark to see the Hamlet's castle, and then to swim a little bit in Helsingborg, and then to swim a little bit in Helsingborg in Sweden. So I found some beautiful pictures of sandy beaches in Sweden. So if it's a sunny day, we'll have a summer holiday in Sweden. So that's our idea.
I'm happy to hear that. It's a very popular place, and you're right. I mean, the whole of Skåne, the region of Skåne, where Malmö is one of the biggest cities, that whole coast is all about long and very sandy beaches, and so of course you can go holidays there. It's a popular place for Swedish people to have holidays or holiday homes and so on. I'm a big fan of sailing, so we have a big archipelago outside of Stockholm, but also in outside of Gothenburg, with a lot of islands, and you can go sailing everywhere. So yeah, it's true. I mean,
it's going to be funny. It's going to be funny when we come back and they ask us, "Oh, where have you been?" I said, "Yeah, we went to the seaside holidays in Sweden and Denmark." And they would say, "You're definitely crazy." But I hope it's going to happen, because we're all vaccinated now. Vaccinated now, and if at the European EU level they will I don't know, enact this green pass or whatever it's called. So we see each other. We see each other in July in Sweden on the beach, you know. So it's going to be quite funny. So the last thing is Sweden is a kind of cultural superpower in music, for example, in lots of other areas, but we know pretty much. I think that everybody knows about 5 bands from Sweden. Can we enhance the cultural cooperation between the two countries? Can we know more about Sweden in Croatia? And can the Swedes know more about Croatian culture? Can we do something when it's all over, when it's not online? Can we make, how should I say, more dense cultural cooperation between the two countries?
Yeah, what I've noticed is that you're right. I mean, Swedish music industry is amongst the biggest in the world in relation to population after the US and the UK. I think it all started with ABBA. Yeah. And actually the whole company around ABBA, that how they realized that, how to launch music in the UK, in the US and so on. So it started off there and it has been developing ever since. I mean, we all knew about Avicii before he died. He was a global star. Now we have Lisa Nilsson, for instance, and we have had Roxette and the rest of them.
The Hives is my favorite.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
the sounds are good.
Yeah.
What else?
Don't tell anyone, but I can tell you that I think the secret to the success story of Swedish music is that they are always trying to copy the UK pop music. So
Ace of Base.
That's how they become so popular.
Yeah, but they have a brilliant accent. I think that lots of Scandinavian bands, basically, not only Swedish but even Norwegian or Danish or even Finnish bands, have this wonderful accent of English. It's because the Nordic languages are so similar. Actually, they have the father languages of English, so they have a beautiful accent, and you can't tell if they are from Sweden or from England or from Scotland or from Australia. You know, they have really good accents. So it really helps. It really helps to make a breakthrough in the English-speaking world. So.
Yeah, when I went to school, we were strictly encouraged to speak British English, not American English. So maybe that explains something. But I think also the other area where I see a lot of influences and in the culture sphere is books. There are a lot of Swedish authors that have been translated into Croatian. So
my favorite during the last year was Fredrik Backman. I read pretty much everything that he wrote during the last year. So
I noticed those books are all over there in the bookshops here in Zagreb, for instance. So that's true. So I think absolutely this is an area where there's absolute potential for closer relations between our two countries. But I do also think that the fact that we have all these Croatian people living in Sweden, you know, that's an automatic link between our two countries. Also when it comes to the culture sphere, books and music and the rest.
I've noticed. I studied in Malaga in Spain for one semester. It was 20 years ago. But time flies. So I noticed that there was a Swedish language radio in Andalusia. There was lots of Swedish pensioners, you know, old age pension. You know, they come to Spain or Portugal and live there, you know, and get their pensions from retirement pensions from Sweden, and they live in a cheaper country. Can we expect Swedish old people to flock and buy houses and live their final days in Croatia one day?
I think that's definitely
link, you know.
Lies in the cards, because there is always this. There is also already this happening. The only thing is that, especially this older generation who came from Croatia, emigrated to Sweden, and now when they're pensioners, they move back to Croatia. But what happens is that they don't register in Sweden. They keep registered in Sweden, maybe having a small apartment there, and then they have a house in Croatia. So you don't see them in the statistics of Croatia, but they are definitely there. I'm very much aware of that happening already.
Oh yeah. So it's interesting. We can expect Swedish language radio. I have to apologize to Nina Persson because my favorite Swedish band is actually the Cardigans, but I forgot about that.
Really? Because Nina Persson comes from the same small town in Sweden as I do.
Oh, say hello to her. I watched her and her band in 2006 during the Exit Festival in Novi Sad. So it was
I'm also a big fan. I've met her twice, and she's a very nice person. So they are also my favorites.
Great. So we exhausted all the questions. Thank you, Diana. You've been a wonderful wonderful guest, and hope to see you in person one day when it's all over.
Yeah.
I'll call you when it comes to Zagreb.
I would love that, I have to say, to see each other in real life, so to say. And thank you so much for inviting me to this interview. I'm very happy to participate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end, and we wave to Diana.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Hej då.